Hi guys, good to see you. In the last video, I presented a lens from Ernst Leitz Wetzlar, the Hektor 4.5, 13.5cm LTM. Today, it will also be about an Ernst Leitz Wetzlar lens from the 50s of the last century, Elmar 4.0 9cm LTM. I used both lenses on my Sony A7III and I hope you enjoy this lens test. Thank you for your time and interest. Please leave a like and subscribe to my channel. Turn on the notification, because that way you won't miss any of my new videos. The Elmar 4.0 9cm shown here was built in 1957 and was still equipped with M39 screw thread. For this video, I used it with the M39 to Leica M mount adapter. This adapter is designed for M39 lenses of focal length 28mm and 90mm, so it can automatically select the image frame on your Leica M, should your Leica M provide these image frames. To connect this lens to my Sony A7III, I used my Techart M2E autofocus adapter, version 1. It offers in conjunction with firmware 7.0, on my Sony A7III only good autofocus performance. The autofocus function is also clearly audible. I should not have updated to firmware version 7.0, as it is exclusively for the Sony A7R IV. Also, on the current official Techart Pro website, firmware update 7.0 is no longer available. Support for this adapter seems to have been discontinued. If you want to buy such an adapter, then I strongly recommend you to choose version 2. The big advantage of this adapter is the built-in extension of 4.5mm. This extension is normally used for focusing, but it can also serve as an extension ring if you set the lens to its shortest focusing distance and bring the adapter to its extension of 4.5mm at the same time. So you always have an extension ring with you. In addition, you can use Canon FD, Minolta MD, Nikon F, Contax Yashica, Pentax K lenses, to name just a few connections, with autofocus by using various adapters on the M-Bayonett. The Elmar 4.0 9cm consists of 4 elements arranged in 3 groups. It weighs only 194 grams, and as you can see, the lens is relatively long but extremely slim. It uses E39 or A39 size screw-in filters. Its front lens rotates with it when focusing. This is something to keep in mind when using polarizing filters, for example. The lens head can be unscrewed on many Ernst Leitz Wetzlar lenses. The lens heads can thus be used on other accessories for the analog Leica M system. An example of this is the use of the lens heads on Visoflex models 1 to 3. With the Visoflex accessories, Leica M models, which are known to be rangefinder cameras, could be used like SLR cameras, at least in terms of the viewfinder view. Whether and which digital Leica M models are compatible with this accessory, I can unfortunately not say. The aperture values can be adjusted continuously in the range from f4 to f32. This is a big plus for videographers, but photographers should take a look at the aperture scale, since the adjustment distance between the individual aperture values is not the same. For easier checking of the aperture values, the aperture adjustment scale is duplicated. The aperture values, like the other markings and designations on the lens, are engraved and filled with paint. Just great to look at and feel. For a circular image of highlights at all aperture values, there are 15 aperture blades. The bokeh is also gorgeous and is wonderfully softly drawn. This fantastic reproduction of the out-of-focus area is probably due to the simple formula of the optical setup and the luxurious Elmar aperture with 15 blades. As you may have already seen in my video about the Hektor 4.5, 13.5cm, I use the original Leitz lens hood, FIKUS number 12530, for this and the Elmar presented here. This can be adjusted in length, and thus adapted to different lens focal lengths. It's a great little accessory, made of metal of course, typical of Leitz, and this lens hood also has the markings engraved and filled with paint. Great. Buy it, even if this lens hood often costs half as much as an Elmar 4/9 cm. In summary, the mechanical quality is typical of Leica. Even though this lens is over 70 years old, its settings work flawlessly. But how does it perform on today's modern mirrorless camera with 24 megapixels? See for yourself. The sharpness, performance and contrast are sufficient at open aperture in the center of the image. The contrast can be increased significantly by using the appropriate lens hood. Slightly stopped down, I am very satisfied with the sharpness performance of the lens in the center of the image. For best sharpness, I use aperture 11. From aperture 16, but especially with even smaller aperture values, the optical quality decreases again, because of the diffraction error. You see here, in these sample images, unprocessed raw files. The result can be improved by image processing, as you can see at the end of the video. I show more sample images on my homepage, apertureonepointfour.com. This close-up was taken at aperture 11. You see here again an unprocessed raw image. I find the sharpness performance impressive. I did not use the Techart adapter's autofocus at close range. With such subjects, I always focus manually, and use the viewfinder magnifier of my Sony A7III. What this small lens from the 50s of the last century is able to do, I find impressive again and again. There is really no reason not to own this lens, and use it to capture light on the sensor of the mirrorless digital camera. With the help of an image editor, you can of course increase contrast, remove haze, eliminate sensor dust and enhance colors, to name just a few examples, and thus increase the image quality. But there is one thing I would like to say about image processing. Text to image or similar is not photography for me. In analog times, we changed colors, either through the choice of film or through the use of filters. In the darkroom, parts of the image were darkened or lightened, and dust was removed. This can be gladly transferred to digital photography. But this does not include the fake image by text to image. As I mentioned earlier, the bokeh is beautifully and wonderfully softly drawn. This fantastic reproduction of the out-of-focus area is probably due to the simple formula of the optical setup, and the luxurious Elmar aperture with 15 blades. You can see this here in these sample images, again unprocessed raw files. Here I did without the lens hood. You can see a clear drop in contrast. So, never forget to pack the lens hood in your photo bag. I don't want to hide one weak point of the lens. The imaging of sun stars is, I'll be honest, non-existent. My conclusion. I can recommend this lens to anyone who enjoys using older analog lenses, wants to slow down a bit, and experience the mechanical and optical quality of a bygone era, and still be able to create images that are always worth showing. At the end of the video, I show you processed images. More information about analog, hybrid and digital photography, you can get on my homepage, apertureonepointfour.com. A visit is worthwhile. See See you at the next video.